Batman boasts it's one of the most impressive villain rosters in the history of superheroes, and Scarecrow is undoubtedly among the rosters for most potent foes. Dr. Jonathan Crane, a disturbed psychology professor who had been bullied all his life, made the decision to master fear. Taking on the persona of the Scarecrow, Crane rose to prominence as one of Gotham's most dreaded criminals. The character soon became one of Batman's most well-liked antagonists and has appeared in several Batman animated and live-action adaptations. Today's video, we will explore the anatomy and powers of this dark and twisted villain. This one is not for the weak-hearted. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, let's begin. How was young Jonathan Crane turned into the dark and twisted Scarecrow? Like most other DC villains, Scarecrow is not one-dimensional. In fact, writers at DC excel in making villains human and relatable, and Scarecrow is no exception. With a rough origin story and a terrible childhood that led him down a path of crime and madness, Dr. Jonathan Crane turned into the horrifying and fearsome Scarecrow. Let's start from the beginning. While he has multiple origin stories, this is one of the most popular versions. Young Jonathan Crane's life took a dark turn when his father, Dr. Crane, delved into a rather unethical research subject: fear. Driven by scientific curiosity, he used his own son as a guinea pig in his experiments. Locking Jonathan in a tiny, lightless room, he subjected the child to insane amounts of terror, seeking to understand exactly what fear was and how it worked. Tragedy struck during a fateful experiment when Dr. Crane died of a heart attack. Left alone and forgotten in the pitch-black chamber, Jonathan faced days turning into nights as he struggled to survive in the dark, hungry and terrified. Eventually discovered by authorities, Jonathan emerged from his unplanned confinement forever scarred by the ordeal. Confronted by the loss of his father, the trauma endured by Jonathan continued to grow and fester within him. This constant reminder of his own perceived mental weakness drove him to resolve to master fear, bend it to his will, and banish it from his own being. With intense determination, he pursued an education in psychology, specializing in phobias, but his obsession with fear and the human mind drove him to dark deeds. He made use of his degree and position to recruit students, whom he would subject to test subjects and torture until they were changed beyond recognition. Taking on the moniker the Scarecrow, Jonathan unleashed his torment upon others, crafting a sinister concoction known as the fear toxin. He exploited his victims' deepest terrors. Inhaling the gas induced nightmarish hallucinations tailored to each individual's darkest fears. His descent into villainy culminated in a chilling act of cruelty, pouring live tarantulas on a student suffering from arachnophobia. Showcasing the extent of his derangement, the academic institution that had once nurtured his intellect cast him aside in horror. However, the fact that he was suspended did not stop him from spreading fear. Gotham City became his canvas, and fear was his medium. As the villainous Scarecrow, he plunged the city into absolute terror, perfecting his nightmarish creations. Jonathan Crane, a little boy who was once a victim of his father's experiments, became the embodiment of fear itself, a twisted figure haunting the shadows of Gotham's darkest corners.
They scream and they cry.
How do Scarecrow's fear toxin work? Scarecrow's fear toxin is a chilling creation designed to exploit the deepest fears and phobias of its victims. Crafted with expertise, the toxin has evolved over time, often becoming more potent and diverse in its effects. When inhaled or consumed, the toxin triggers intense hallucinations that manifest the victim's worst fears as horrifying reality. Whether it's facing nightmarish creatures, witnessing harrowing events, or confronting personal traumas, the victim is plunged into a terrifying ordeal within their own minds, making it extremely tough for them to break out of it. The duration of the toxin's effects can vary. However, it is known that Batman has developed an antidote that rapidly counteracts its influence. Overcoming the specific fear triggered by the toxin has also been shown to diminish its symptoms. Scarecrow's early attempts at administering the toxin involved methods such as sprays and smoke. He even created pills that could project fear into the minds of his enemies, but these proved problematic, backfiring on those who consumed them. To refine his approach, Scarecrow devised a more potent version of the toxin, which could be delivered in liquid form. While the fumes emitted by the toxin were effective, direct contact with someone proved to be the most reliable means of dosing a person. Interestingly, Scarecrow used coated straws as a decoy to make his victims touch the toxin, maximizing its impact. He also went on to develop a fear pheromone. When injected, the substance induced fear in all individuals nearby, creating an environment of heightened terror. Disturbingly, those exposed to the pheromone would progressively descend into madness over a span of 6 days from the initial injection. Moreover, using the high-frequency emitter fear device, he was able to target the nervous system, manipulating it to trigger a range of physiological responses associated with fear. These included pupil dilation, increased blood pressure, accelerated heart rate, and heightened adrenaline production. Depending on the frequency and intensity, victims could experience anything from startlement to overwhelming dread. In some cases, victims even began to see their fears come to life or perform actions against their will due to the intense fear induced by the toxin. Scarecrow's fear toxin is undoubtedly a weapon of psychological torment that exploits vulnerabilities in the human mind. How did he make the fear toxin? The fear toxin is synonymous with Scarecrow. Given that it's his primary and signature weapon, it's not surprising that he has never revealed the exact formula. Additionally, the nature of the toxin is ever-evolving, as Scarecrow constantly tweaks and perfects it to prevent predictability. While we can't provide the exact formula, we can delve into what he explored while creating it and discuss the different versions he's been seen using. Drawing from his expertise in phobias and the human mind, he created a formula to induce intense, personalized hallucinations of fear in his victims. The process involves Crane blending various chemical agents to create a potent and volatile mixture. It's reasonable to assume that this mixture includes hallucinogenic compounds, neurotoxins, and hormones. These compounds were carefully selected to target specific areas of the brain responsible for processing fear and anxiety. Understanding that fear is deeply personal and subjective, Crane incorporated psychological triggers into his formula. These triggers often connect to a person's worst fears or traumatic experiences, intensifying the vividness and horror of the hallucinations. To effectively administer the fear toxin, Crane also developed different delivery mechanisms, ranging from gas dispersal devices to injectable serums. Although the fear toxin is most commonly observed in its gaseous form, let us now take a look at the various strains he developed. First up, we have the fear toxin Venom combination. Bane, a formidable foe of Batman, once partnered with Scarecrow to merge his Venom formula with the fear toxin. This combo granted immense strength and fearlessness to the user, but came with a high cost. After its effects wore off, the user experienced extreme pain and bleeding from their eyes. This was later improved upon through testing and use by Bane himself. Another iteration is the super toxin 451A, crafted by Crane's father using the perspiration of children exposed to milder fear toxins. This strain resulted in a more potent toxin that even Scarecrow himself lacked antibodies against. Overcoming its effects could take months, and devising an antidote proved challenging due to its complexity. Moving on to the Cassandra strain. Following the events involving the crime syndicate, Scarecrow synthesized this strain. It was linked to the mechanism that rouses individuals from dreams upon their demise. Its effects led to persistent daymares, even days after exposure, featuring vivid death scenarios involving various villains. There is also one known as the trauma toxin, created during an assault on the Bat family by a group called Mother. This toxin inflicted mental scars akin to those left by traumatic events. Victims became vulnerable to manipulation, devoid of their own emotions. The extreme potency of this strain rendered it too much even for Scarecrow to bear, as the victim's malleability diminished his control over fear. Last but not least, we have Essence de Trauma. This is the original version of the trauma toxin. By forcing victims to relive their most traumatic experiences, Scarecrow aimed to amplify their deepest fears and anxieties. We might not know what exactly is in the fear toxin, but best believe we don't want to get close enough to find that out either.
You stole fear toxin.
An artist doesn't steal.
Can Scarecrow's fear toxin work on the Joker? The clown prince of crime is renowned for his fearlessness. making it unsurprising that the fear-inducing toxin has little effect on the Joker's twisted psyche. This unique immunity can be traced back to the origin story of the Joker's insanity. Once a man with his own fears, his transformation into the Joker eradicated all traces of his former self. That infamous one bad day obliterated his inhibitions and fears, creating a psychopathic being who thrives on chaos and rejects sanity. Scarecrow's fear toxin, which can dismantle even the strongest of minds, encounters something unprecedented when used on the Joker. While most victims succumb to their own nightmares, the Joker's lack of fear renders the toxin ineffective. It's not entirely clear if his immunity is biological, psychological, or both, but the toxin has no impact on him. If indeed immune, his body would likely metabolize the toxin like any regular substance such as food or water. Whether his immunity originates from his absolute fearlessness or an inherent resistance remains a mystery. In one comic book instance, the Joker was exposed to the fear toxin, as depicted in Detective Comics number 664. Interestingly, the toxin had the effect of administering water to him. No change occurred in the Clown Prince of Crime, leaving readers astounded. Thus, the fear toxin, a weapon that typically envelops people's minds in terror, finds itself powerless in the presence of the Joker. Did Scarecrow also use the drug Venom? The drug known as Venom, which was initially based on Auermann's miraculous formula, was a very potent steroidal substance that was typically injected into the base of the neck of a person. This drug would then instantaneously turn a person into a monstrous mass of unrestrained physical strength for 12 hours. However, to maintain this effect after the 12-hour time limit, a continuous infusion of the drug is required. This drug is primarily associated with the famous Batman villain, Bane, and his equipment even had a unique boost button that he could use to inject himself with venom when necessary. Bane's signature drug has often been the subject of extensive testing by Scarecrow, both with and without his consent, depending on the storyline. In fact, Scarecrow has demonstrated how combining the drug with his own toxin causes the injected person to go insane and lose all sense of fear. Scarecrow has also demonstrated how ingesting very small quantities of venom may be utilized to temporarily permit enormous muscular growth.
We're two sides of the same coin.
How's that, Scarecrow?
We both use fear as a weapon.
Could the Scarecrow costume detect fear? In certain versions of Scarecrow's specialized outfit, he incorporated upgraded technology that enabled him to detect fear that lay in the minds of those within his proximity. By sensing fear through his suit, Scarecrow could pinpoint individuals who were succumbing to the effects of his fear toxin or experiencing heightened anxiety due to their worst phobias. This capability not only amplified Scarecrow's control over his victims, but also showcased his expertise in fear as a psychological weapon. In addition to his fear-detecting technology, Scarecrow's outfit often included injection needles designed for the delivery of his fear toxin. These needles were sharp and robust, even enough to shatter formidable barriers like Peacekeeper 01's damaged mask. By wielding these needles, Scarecrow could directly inject victims with his toxin, instantly subjecting them to nightmarish hallucinations of their deepest fears. This combination of fear detection technology and injection needles showcases Scarecrow's calculated and intelligent approach to inducing terror, making him a profoundly menacing presence in Gotham's rogue gallery. What are some of his other major abilities that make him dangerous? Scarecrow possesses more in his arsenal than just fear toxin. He is endowed with a genius intellect that spans across the domains of psychology, chemistry, toxicology, and mechanical engineering. Proficient in mechanical engineering, Scarecrow's ingenuity shines through in construction of devices like his yellow ring power machine. He is also skilled with his gadgets and technology, often utilizing viral videos to employ hypnotic techniques that inundate his victims with overwhelming fear, ensnaring their minds in a web of terror. He also demonstrates leadership skills when he commanded Arkham Asylum lunatics during Gotham's Arkham War. Furthermore, Scarecrow's tactical insights, pedagogical finesse, and uncanny intimidation abilities reinforce his mastery over fear. His versatility extends to combat, displaying basic proficiency in hand-to-hand combat. Adept in stealth, Scarecrow can navigate shadows effortlessly, instilling fear in unsuspecting victims. Thus, Scarecrow's multifaceted abilities converge to create a man synonymous with fear, leaving an indelible mark on those who encounter him. His genius, coupled with the mastery of human psyche and scientific manipulation, make him a truly formidable and chilling villain. How Batman the Animated Series redesigned Scarecrow in a terrifying form. Batman the Animated Series underwent a significant transformation in shaping the appearance of Scarecrow. Initially introduced in Nothing to Fear, the character's initial design wasn't well received. It was neither scary nor visually appealing, presenting a disappointingly bland interpretation of a terrifying villain. This led to a swift redesign by producer Bruce Timm. Timm's reimagining of Scarecrow made its debut in Fear Victory, where the character shed the lackluster and unthreatening look of its predecessor. This revamped Scarecrow showcased bulkier physical proportions, an intricate mask, and a distinct mane of straw-like hair. However, despite these improvements, the character still lacked the truly horrifying essence captured in the comics. Finally, when the New Batman Adventures premiered in 1997, Scarecrow's transformation reached its zenith. Voiced by Jeffrey Combs, Scarecrow adopted an unsettling and eerie tone that matched his new appearance. This redesign, orchestrated by the show's creators to align with the visual direction of the new series, rendered Scarecrow genuinely nightmarish. With a deformed face, ominous preacher attire, and a noose necktie reminiscent of Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, this version sent shivers down the viewer's spines. Interestingly, the impact of this redesign extended beyond the series itself. The haunting imagery etched into Scarecrow's new look left a significant imprint on subsequent iterations of the character. Elements like the hangman's noose necktie, in particular, became a favored aspect among artists when depicting Scarecrow. In essence, the evolution of Scarecrow's design in Batman the Animated Series showcases the creator's unwavering commitment to crafting a genuinely fearsome portrayal of the villain. Did he once sew his lips together? The short answer is yes, he did sew his lips together. Here's how it happened. In the New 52 continuity of DC Comics, Scarecrow sewed his lips together as part of his appearance and transformation to fit the much darker aura of the New 52. Scarecrow's decision to sew his lips together is linked to his obsession with fear and his desire to embody his own version of terror. By mutilating his appearance in this gruesome manner, Scarecrow aimed to inspire fear in others and manifest his internal madness outwardly. The sewn lips became a physical representation of his dedication to inflicting fear upon Gotham City and Batman. This macabre self-modification also showcases Scarecrow's willingness to endure pain and deformity in pursuit of his psychological goals. It highlighted his twisted mindset, where he views himself as an agent of fear and chaos, willing to go to extreme lengths to create an aura of terror. However, despite this, he can still speak since he kept the stitches relatively loose. Although his modification was only cosmetic, it remains one of the most unsettling things Scarecrow has done, especially in recent times. Can his psychological issues bring about his downfall? It is no secret that Scarecrow is deranged at best and completely empty, apart from the madness that resides in him at worst. However, while his psychological issues make him a horrifying villain, one that knows no limits or bounds, the same issues also impact him deeply as well. In fact, his psychological issues could one day lead to his downfall. It is a known fact that Scarecrow has had a whole host of issues ever since he was a child, including having anxiety disorder. Crane has also previously experienced corvidophobia, or a fear of crows, as a result of being attacked by a bunch of crows in his family's aviary. However, he overcame this fear in some way and now frequently appears with a crow by the name of Craw. Later, after his initial meeting with Batman, he grew afraid of bats, a condition known as corruptophobia. It really seems like his mind is his own worst enemy. Not only this, Scarecrow's obsession with instilling fear in other people drives him to use it as a weapon, but he does so to conquer fear, something that he might be a master of, but is not completely immune to. All his misdeeds may very well come back to bite him in the ass someday, and that will be a nightmare like no other for him. Scarecrow is undoubtedly one of the most menacing villains to reside in Gotham, and considering just how much evil lurks in the shadows of Batman's home city, it only means that this villain is a class apart. Would you like to see Scarecrow brought to life in a live-action version? Tell us in the comment section below. And with that, have a good one and be safe, everyone.